More than 150 journalists are reporting around the clock on events in Germany and the world. In Washington, diplomacy is still the prevailing topic, but pressure is mounting daily on Donald Trump to translate his threats against Iran into action. Is he on the brink of ordering the most consequential military strike of his presidency? American F-22 Raptor fighter jets launched at around 5 o'clock in the morning local time from Langley Air Force Base. Dozens of F-16s followed. 2 complete aircraft carrier strike groups are either en route or already positioned in the Middle East. Numerous tanker aircraft are crossing the Atlantic. Patriot and THAAD air defense systems are fully operational and ready for deployment. Several United States media outlets are reporting that, according to American government officials, President Donald Trump could be prepared to order attacks on Iran as early as this weekend. What is clear at this moment is that no one in Washington is pretending that this largest deployment of air power since the Iraq War under George W. Bush is merely a show of force or routine. High-ranking security advisors have reportedly informed Trump that the military is now ready for a strike. At the Pentagon, the United States Department of Defense, special shifts are being worked. Discussions at the White House are described as fluid, indicating an ongoing process. The direction seems evident. The forces currently concentrated in the Middle East are more than symbolic. Such a significant material and financial investment suggests a potential commitment to a weeks-long air campaign. Yet, from an external perspective, no final decision has been made. The White House publicly emphasized on Wednesday that talks with the government in Tehran remain a priority. Trump's press secretary Caroline Leavitt stressed diplomacy is always his first option. At the same time, she added that there are many reasons and arguments that could be made for a strike against Iran. Leavitt warned that Iran would be very wise to conclude an agreement with President Trump. Vice President JD Vance had previously adopted a similar tone. He stated in an interview with Fox News that the talks this week in Geneva had, in some respects, gone well. However, he also made it very clear that the president has drawn some red lines that the Iranians have not yet been willing to acknowledge or address. Among other things, the Americans are pushing for an end to Iran's entire nuclear program, including its civilian use. Behind the scenes at the White House, tensions are reportedly high. A Trump advisor, according to media reports, stated quite drastically, "The boss is losing patience." He believes there is a 90% probability that kinetic actions, meaning armed attacks, will be seen in the coming weeks. Trump himself recently issued open threats, declaring that if Tehran does not conclude an agreement, it will be a very bad day for Iran. This places the president once again before a decision that fundamentally contradicts his political brand. The MAGA Republican ran on a promise to keep America out of new wars. Trump consistently boasts of having ended 8 wars worldwide in his first year in office, an assertion experts dispute. He calls his new exclusive paid club for peace mediation the Board of Peace. It is scheduled to meet for the first time this Thursday in Washington. He also renamed the decades-old United States Institute of Peace in the United States Capitol to the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. His frustration over not yet receiving the Nobel Peace Prize regularly surfaces publicly. The American president must understand that a large-scale military intervention against Iran would likely be the most consequential United States military intervention in the Middle East in over a decade. If it goes wrong, it risks a years-long war or even a dangerous regional conflagration. This is particularly salient given Trump's pride in having initiated a peace process in one of the world's most unstable regions with the so-called Abraham Accords during his first term. However, military preparations have long been speaking a clear language. Just last month, Trump postponed a potential strike after his military advisors warned him that they were not sufficiently prepared for such an undertaking. At that time, United States troops stationed in the region had too few air defense systems. This gap, however, now appears to have been closed. Not only have Patriot and THAAD air defense systems been relocated, but more than 150 military transport flights have also brought additional weapons and ammunition into the region. American B-2 bombers are on heightened alert. The two aircraft carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald R. Ford, can provide mobile firepower and strategic flexibility to United States forces. F-35 jets are already stationed in Jordan. AWACS reconnaissance aircraft control the airspace. Officially, no one states it so directly. But one thing becomes clear in conversations with diplomats and experts from Washington think tanks. Such an armada is not deployed merely for show. Trump and his frequently stated security policy motto, peace through strength, could indeed be challenged if Iran fails to relent. Outwardly, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appears unimpressed. He recently threatened American warships, declaring that an aircraft carrier is a dangerous weapon, but even more dangerous is the weapon that can sink it. He did not reveal what weapon he meant. Tehran has since closed parts of its own airspace for missile launches. Additionally, military maneuvers are being conducted in the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 20% of the world's traded crude oil passes. Iran has also announced joint military exercises with its ally Russia in the Gulf of Oman. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned the United States government against an attack. However, Trump may feel compelled to act if he wishes to avoid appearing weak. The United States president is already facing criticism because his harsh threats against the Tehran regime, after it violently suppressed mass demonstrations in January, have so far not been followed by action. Help is on the way, Trump announced then. For thousands who were reportedly killed, it never arrived. On Wednesday, the United States president wrote on his social media platform, Truth, that it might be necessary for the United States to use Diego Garcia for an attack against Iran if Iran does not want to conclude a nuclear agreement. Diego Garcia is a British-controlled island in the Indian Ocean. Trump also mentioned the British Royal Air Force base Fairford. Is it all just saber rattling? Several factors are now increasing the probability of a military strike. First, diplomacy appears to be stalled. While United States representatives speak of progress in Geneva, they also acknowledge large gaps. Iran intends to submit more detailed proposals within 2 weeks. The White House often uses such deadlines. 3 days after a similar 2-week window last year, Trump launched Operation Midnight Hammer, during which he ordered the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities. Second, expectations for Trump are immensely high. After months of threats and the visible deployment of aircraft carriers and stealth jets, a retreat without substantial concessions from Tehran would be politically costly. While Trump is known for sometimes quietly retracting ultimatums, this situation is likely to be different due to the significant attention from the global public. Third, close ally Israel is reportedly preparing for war, according to local media reports. In Jerusalem, a longer-term joint campaign is anticipated, targeting not only nuclear facilities but also Iran's missile arsenal and potentially even central power structures of the regime. Hezbollah and the Houthi militia could enter the conflict and open new fronts. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Trump just a few days ago. Observers in Washington assume that joint strikes were discussed there. Fourth, the regime in Tehran is considered weakened. On one hand, socially by recent protests, and on the other, economically by the increasingly severe sanctions regime. Added to this are the attacks already carried out last year and successful strikes against Iranian-funded terrorist groups in the region. In Washington, it is believed that Iran's capabilities for retaliatory strikes are currently as low as they have been in a long time. Fifth, for Trump, the oil market also plays a significant role. Despite initial price jumps, supply is currently relatively stable. Further fluctuations would likely occur, but could remain limited if the Strait of Hormuz can be kept open. The risks, however, are enormous, unlike the precision operations against Iranian nuclear facilities or against Venezuela's deposed leader, Nicolás Maduro. High-ranking security advisors have already warned the president that a regime change cannot be guaranteed. An action specifically aimed at destabilizing the Iranian leadership could, on the contrary, lead to a broader war. Therefore, Trump can essentially only justify actions that are quick, successful, and without his own losses. The president could ultimately conclude that the political costs in this case are simply too high and unpredictable. Moreover, there has been hardly any serious debate about a possible war in the United States Congress or among the public. If it begins, the responsibility would thus lie entirely with the president, along with the ensuing debates about the legality of his military operation without congressional consent. Much, therefore, speaks for limited strikes. How precise they can truly be, however, will determine more than ever for Donald Trump and the entire region, whether this weekend or in the days thereafter. Stay tuned for more updates on this developing story. This video was generated using artificial intelligence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more updates. See you next time.